Hey, and welcome to this introduction on PVT and face behavior. In this entire course, we'll concentrate and focus on some face behavior basics, and it should be perfect for beginners or people who have not been exposed that much to PVT and face behavior to climb the learning curve quickly. The first thing we would like to do is to just go over the agenda, the different modules of the course. First, we'll go through some basic vocabulary and FYIs before we jump into the petroleum fluids, this thing that many of you might have heard about, which is these phase envelopes or phase diagrams. We'll learn how we actually typically classify different reservoir fluids, how we model PVT, the different models that we can pick from. And then in the end, there's a few not super advanced topics, but at least to understand a lot of the fundamentals, we think it's at least nice to give you all an introduction to K values, what's called the so-called flash calculation, and what's the quote unquote most used and sophisticated models representing PVT and phase behavior in the petroleum industry, which is an equation of state model. An equation of state model, that's an advanced topic, and if you want to learn more about that, we'll reference you to the advanced PVT and equation of state characterization course, which is also on Whitson Academy. Good. So the first question is, okay, if this is the first time, or it's been a long time since you've actually heard about the word PVT, maybe you've even not heard the abbreviation PVT, or you've heard it many times, but you don't know what it stands for or what it means, then you're at the right place. So in the resources part that's associated to this course on Whitson Academy, you'll find a very condensed down document written by the founder of Whitson, Curtis Hayes Whitson, in 1993. And the audience was actually geologists in this particular case. And it was written for AAPG, and to try to explain to geologists what is the key terms, what is the key definitions and concepts related to PVT, and try to explain it in a manner that talks to and speaks the language of a geologist. And that's a very, very nice document to read through to get a overview before we start this course, that I recommend even for people who have a lot of experience with phase behavior and PVT. I would recommend you to read this document before we start, such that we have some fundamental definitions, some terms already built into our vocabulary. And a lot of these concepts will also grow on us, and will as we become more familiar with a lot of these physical concepts and definitions. But if you don't want to do that and you still want to look at this presentation in a very, very short terms, we'll say that PVT, it's trying to describe the physical and thermodynamic properties of gas and oil, okay, in typically a reservoir or in a pipe or at a facility. And that's what we'll focus on in this particular course. And as commonly done, the phase and volumetric behavior of petroleum fluids is referred to as PVT, where the P stands for pressure, the V stands for volume, and the T stands for temperature. And then the question is, what about water? So there's actually call it a PVT component to water as well. We'll not focus on water in this particular presentation, but there's a or course, but there's a very, very nice summary of some of the key concepts related to water in that document that we recommend you to read, that was mentioned on the previous page. The reason we're not focusing a lot on water is that the most fundamental and call it complex and important things to understand that has to do with PVT is related to gas and oil 99% of the time. So ignoring water in this context, makes a lot of sense. But for those of you who are interested, there is a nice summary of water there. And if you read that small paragraph on water and call it phase behavior, you'll have a very good understanding of that as well. Um, so just back to, we typically step back when we have these courses in the industry, and we mentioned the ideal gas law that most of us have learned about in either university or high school. I did not have chemistry in high school, but I guess this was something we probably learned about in physics as well. So and that's one of the most fundamental PVT relationships that we'll talk more about later in the course. That's actually used in a lot of call it material balance equations and whatnot. And it's simply just a relationship between pressure, volume, and temperature. Where we, in addition here, we have to also define this is the so-called universal gas constant, and then the number of moles. So if you've seen this equation, you've already been exposed to PVT, and even the most advanced PVT is just complex, call it functions of this particular expression. Very good.